Afternoon to you. So we're expecting Costa to have his medical tomorrow. In terms of this potential move to Molineux, what more can you tell us?
Well, it seems that Bruno Lage wants him there. He's clearly not match fit and he hasn't played since January, and he's coming up 34. So he's not the player that he was at his heyday with Atletico Madrid and Chelsea. But he brings plenty to the table. Experience and such a competitor. There's a story I heard about his very first day at Chelsea where he couldn't speak English. I think he used Fabregas as his translator. Went up to John Terry, the captain, and he said, "I'm going to get into a physical battle with the opposing centre-backs, and I'd like to know that if it all kicks off, I've got your support." And this was music to John Terry's ears. This was exactly what he wanted to hear from his centre forward. He thought, well, I'll have some of that, you know. And Diego Costa, a very controversial character, hated by opponents, hated by opposition fans, but he tends to be very, very popular with his teammates. Brings a lot of experience and competitive spirits to the table. Perhaps a slight worry, even with the age, is his time in Brazil. There were a few niggling injuries. Certainly didn't do badly in Brazil in his move back to his homeland with Atletico Mineiro, and they won the League and Cup double. So that was a huge success. You wondered really if they needed him. They had Hulk to you, playing at centre forward very, very well. I always get pulled up for that. I apologise. It's Hulky over here. I live over here.
Don't apologise, Tim.
So there was a question mark if they really needed him. And he did suffer some niggling injuries, which I think is a potential worry there for Wolves. But the only thing that brought that spell in Brazil short was the fact, and this is common for Brazilian players who spend a long time in Europe, his kids weren't happy. The contemporary reality of Brazil, big city Brazil, the lack of urban safety, it can be hard for the kids to adapt. And that was a problem. So there were no problems on the field with Diego Costa in Brazil. So, as I say, he's not going to be match fit. Couldn't agree terms in the window with Rayo Vallecano, one of the clubs in Spain where he was successful before on loan. But that experience, that competitive spirit, and the fact that the coach seems to want him, all would point in the direction that he may be short-term an asset to Wolves.
OK, so he's past the peak of his powers in terms of him as a player because of his age. He's lacking that match fitness, which you talk about as well. But his record at Chelsea was terrific. 52 goals in 89 games. Even at this age, once he's match fit, can he still be a success in England?
Well, you can imagine opposing centre-backs looking at that team lineup and seeing the name Diego Costa in there, and you can imagine a shiver going down their spine. So that's already an effect that he's having on the game. They will be very, very pleased if he's not playing. So just the name that he brings, the aura that he brings, in the short term, I can't see where this can go wrong for Wolves.
And I think, as you've already talked about, he's still going to be an absolute pain for centre-backs across the Premier League because, OK, physically things may have changed for him, but I'd imagine in terms of that fiery temperament, that remains very much intact.
It does, and with age and maturity comes the ability to ration your efforts a little bit more, to pick your fights, as it were. There's no need to get involved in spats that aren't in your interest. You want to get in spats that are going to wind up the opposing defenders when it's in the interests of you and your side. So welcome back to the Premier League, I hope, for Diego Costa. He's too good a player to be left kicking his heels in idleness. We want to see him on the field. We want to see the spectacle that he brings.
And given that, Tim, were there any other clubs that were interested in him?
This is perhaps a slight worry that there were negotiations, as far as I know, with Rayo Vallecano. Couldn't fix himself up with them. And it seems that there weren't a host of clubs beating them, making their way to the door of Diego Costa saying, come and play for us. That could spark a reaction. You know, he's a proud soul. And he may be wanting to prove to some of those clubs who weren't interested in him during the window that maybe they should have paid a little bit more attention.